The God's honest truth. Ontario, the 51st state, 1848. Can't make this stuff up. On our X space yesterday, Sunday, an American named Thomas came on, and unfortunately I couldn't link. I was white knuckled through the GTA all the way to eastern Ontario into Bruce County. Went right through the most northern worst of the Arctic vortex formation. Did that Friday coming out, and of course it moved south with me, and of course going back it was brutal. But Thomas brought up the story of the oldest suspension bridge in Canada today, Niagara Falls, and it's an 1848 story. It's the birth of USA-Canada trade relations. Before Canada was a country, this was British North America, specifically the colony of Upper and Lower Canada, and what befell them as the United Kingdom entered into what were called the Corn Laws, where they terminated that British North America, specifically Canada, Upper and Lower Canada's preferential trade access to Mother Britain. We were completely cut off, sideswiped. All of our products were hit with tariffs. No more Canadian products into the UK. Vast taxes would be paid. It was devastating for Ontario and Quebec, those provinces today, in their pre-1905 amendment expansions. It was the Little Ontario, Little Quebec, Upper and Lower Canada. So what had happened in 1846, UK terminated all preferential access forevermore for any Canadian products to ever make it to the UK. We were banned. We existed to serve them in revenue, to be their subjects, lower class colonial subjects, pay taxes and revenue, but not have equal trade access to today's United Kingdom. This is the old world that reigned supreme all the way up to World War II. And the only people that Canadians can say they owe their lives and generations to is the United States of America. You never had to pay taxes like all the other states of the Union. You were allowed all of the same near free trade access to the United States as the 50 states beyond any other country in the world. You made a promise in World War II that you would educate all Canadians through the provinces and territories on the new world order. Your government did that in World War II. Not only Canada, but every nation in the world of the 193 nations. It's in the UN Charter from the glorious allies of World War II. I tagged my friend Michelle Rempel before I'll give you this wicked story, true story of the first bridge for people crossing and trade, which was Canada Rail to the United States, and eventually we'd run east and west in the formation of the Dominion of Canada, making sure all of that in over 85 percentile went straight south to the United States, where we were given equal access as all of the 50 states without paying any federal reciprocal taxes. USA paid for all of it. Americans subsidized all of it. So I tagged my friend Carrie Rempel, Carrie sent me a video on BBC News. I just finished watching that half-hour program glorifying Mark Carney, really attacking Donald J. Trump, painting him as a bad guy, telling all Canadians from BBC, who gives the marching orders to CBC, Global, CTV, CBC Global, you name it, all of them in Canada are following suit. Bloomberg is breaking away, Fox is breaking away, and even CNN is breaking away, everybody. Americans are waking up to it. Donald J. Trump tells you you owe your lives to America. You really do, Canadians, long before you were even Canadians, long before you were ever anything other than a colony of British North America. They were already killing and destroying you. Your big brother down south opened their doors to you, subsidized you, built that infrastructure. And I'm going to give you this story of what was Union Bridge. It's now been upgraded in Niagara. It's still the oldest bridge to the United States in North America, which is central to Canada's trade north and south to the United States of America. Obviously, Peace Bridge, Rainbow Bridge came along after, vast scale, great for trucking, but still that rail bridge goes, and it's the monumental piece. A 16-year-old boy navigated that gorge, and a $5 reward for the first American or British subject of the colony of Canada, Upper and Lower Canada. Whichever child could build a kite to fly across that 800-foot span treacherous gorge and land their kite line, and then tie a rope, pull it back, tie a bigger rope until they got the cables, and use the cables crisscross until they had massive cables, massive machines. America and Canada together on Union Bridge. Ontarians, you were the first in Canada to explore statehood. You are the first to aggressively go for statehood. Now, Britain responded against all of you, made treaties and other things, gave you some kind of governance, and America's patiently waited for you. We hit World War II. Britain was finished. Britain promised America a lot in the Atlantic Charter 1941. They developed the new Charter of the United Nations with USA, with Russia, China, and of course France, who realistically, France was smithed by Germany in 1 week's time. World War II was started and finished in France in a week. They were completely taken. Britain would have fell literally a month later had USA and Russia said, up yours, UK. You can go straight to hell. You've been nothing but a thorn in our side. But they promised, King George VI and Prime Minister Winston Churchill promised the United States of America they would educate all of the Commonwealth countries. They would decolonize them. And to King George VI's credit, he most certainly did, at least till 1952, where he started on Canada, but died in the middle of it. He had finished India, who quickly threw away everything he had put in place to be ratified after his death. They threw away a lot of it and remained as they are today in a class structure as a republic, but not truly a free republic. Still a member of that evil Commonwealth, still a member of the old world order of socialism and fascism. Arguably, are they better or worse than Canada? I don't think so. It's a third world country that has caste system entirely enshrined in it, where there are superior human beings throughout all levels of the Indian system, which is identical to what Canada is. We have first, second, third class subjects and a savage class of human beings with the most inhumane laws in violation of the new world order. We are designed in the old world order. When Mark Carney says the old world order doesn't work, he's talking about his British system and the need to transition to communism, not the new world order that's supposed to be since 1945. China is to be a part of USA, Russia, China, UK, and France's promised New World Order, but they're not going to deliver. Communism will never lead to that. It's why the Russian Federation exists the way it is. It's why it fell in 1989. They know it doesn't work. If you read the Russian Lexilogos, you will learn about 13 different types of socialism, including the most dangerous socialist fascist system that Canada finds itself in, that America's really making monumental grounds on navigating. So I'm going to go into the story of Harmon Walsh, the 16-year-old Canadian from Upper Canada, British North America, who flew his kite across the gorge to create Union Bridge, the first North American bridge cementing trade between Canada and, well, what would be Canada and the United States of America, a joint effort where the Americans' kids sat on the Niagara Gorge side of the USA and Canadian kids sat on the Canadian side of the gorge, the British North American side. And the contest was the first person to design a kite that could fly across the gorge to get the string costs would be paid $5, a tremendous amount of money in 1848. And Harmon Walsh did that, and it was a beautiful thing that cemented forevermore Canada and the United States, when at that period of time, all Ontarians, you wanted to be the 51st state. You begged America for it, who then was only a middle power, not strong enough to stand up to the British North America, still at war with the Spanish Empire as they were removing slavery from the world, which they would go on and finish after their civil war, and they would spend the next 50 years removing that from the southern states constitutionally, and they did post the Civil War, but they had to finish off the Spanish Empire and terminate all of that evil still lingering in their southern USA states. Fact, America evolves, Canada doesn't. Canadians, Ontarians, it was you who wanted to be the 51st state first. You were the first to aggressively pursue it, and America couldn't take you. They could only give you preferential access because they weren't strong enough at that time, still in war with the Spanish Empire, to have a two-front war with Great Britain, the United Kingdom, the most powerful nation in the world at that time, the superpower of all superpowers. USA couldn't do it. What we know of our history is a lie. I hope everybody takes the story of Harmon Walsh, a beautiful story of Canadians and Americans together, and just exactly why we have such a deeply integrated trade system. And the only reason why today that's coming to an end, I'm going to tell everybody, the BBC special ran that's the propaganda of Mark Carney and all the Canadian evil media today, is that it's an epic lie. Mark Carney brought Premier Scott Moe to China to betray the United States of America and turn over the world's greatest source out of the ground, the number one most highly enriched uranium ore out of the ground. There is no equivalent worldwide than what you pull out of Saskatchewan. It's a dense piece of matter from early solar system that impacted the Earth, a tiny fraction, 1 in a trillion hit on Earth that landed in Saskatchewan, a source of immense energy, the world's largest and most best source of weapons-grade uranium, bar nowhere else. Kazakhstan is a close second that Russia has used. It's why only USA and Russia have a vast stockpile of nuclear arms, and they have never, ever used them since stockpiling them. What Mark Carney did to the United States of America with Premier Scott Moe was not only go to China and pretend that it's not some kind of big deal. They went there, and Scott Moe folded for the first time in American and Canadian history and turned over that greatest source of weapons-grade uranium ore, the world's best and only source out of the ground, already 20% enriched, well on its way to devastating world destruction, and handed that over to China. Completely betrayed the United States of America. If that isn't a declaration of war by Canada, I don't know what is. You talk about proxy war. For no media in the entire world to cover this and defend Donald J. Trump's words and actions is a human travesty. It's a human travesty. It's an utter insult to all humanity, really. The allies of World War II, what we fought for. It's a great betrayal of Canada on a magnitude never, ever seen before. To complain about all the vast crimes against Canadians by China in spying, in theft, in breach of our supposed sovereignty and America's sovereignty, our best friend, and you do that. This isn't just a tit for tat. Threaten us with 51st state. Oh yeah, we're gonna make China a weapons-grade uranium monster of nuclear, and by 2050, they'll overtake United States in all nuclear armament. Many, many times the United States of America by 2050. Ontario, you've been dumping all of our gold into China for 2 decades, most of it under the architect Mark Carney, who was the governor of the Bank of Canada under an appointment by who? Stephen Harper, Conservative. He completely sold off all our gold reserves, largely through London, straight to China. And when the UK said, no, Carney went to Charles, got appointed by Boris Johnson, Prime Minister, as then another series as the Bank of London, Central Bank of England. Mark Carney goes on and finishes it off, where all of a sudden 200 tons of Ontario gold annually enters into China to take over USD, to destroy USD. This is what Canada has been doing since 2011 under the Canada-China Security FIPA deal, aka the War on America. At the exact same time period, Alberta, you sold the Penhold base. I know, as a child in Air Cadets, I had a dream I'd be a jet pilot. I know I'm way too big of a guy, but I was a skinny teenager, and I had a love of jets. Top Gun was a big deal to me. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I joined Air Cadets. I did all the military requirements. I did the summer camps. I did the Hercules when we had them. I did them. I did the Penhold base. I did all of those camps. I even went to Cold Lake to do the Arctic survival, where they train space pilots. Well, we sold Penhold. We sold that following Canada-China FIPA in Alberta. The central base sold to China as a pilot training base for communist Chinese pilots. That's what we did. It's in news media. It's greatly diminished. I know it's hard to find. It's there. You'll find the flight schools. They're communist Chinese. The fences are up there. I know. I spent time there as a child. Summer camps for Air Cadets. Pre-training for the Air Force. I did that. I know that. I looked at what they did to the place. I know what it is now. A Chinese runway fenced in Chinese writing, do not enter. There's been many exposés of people who've gone to Alberta to see what's going on there. It's Chinese owned, Chinese operated. A Hercules, Spar Aerospace, gone from Penhold all the way to the international airport, long gone. I used to do a training episode. They'd fly me up in a Hercules. I'd be on a cable. They'd open the back door, and you'd have to walk down with all your gear, walk down that ramp in the air, flying through the air, walk around the cable and come back up the runway. If you were strong enough and you didn't go flying off the cable and you could hold your pack, you passed, and I did. Cool things like that no Canadian child will ever see again, let alone any Alberta child. Long gone. When we gutted our NATO spending, terminated all of that, lost all the Hercules, lost Penhold, we sabotaged Alberta, Canada, completely under Stephen Harper. I'm sorry, Canadians, this is a truth I lived personally in my lifetime. I lived it. Can't make it up. Gone forever. No Canadian kid will ever know those experiences. My generation was the last. It was closed shortly thereafter. By the time I was in high school, it was all closed. My dreams gone. Move on in life. From there, it wasn't long dealing with China that these things were done with Alberta. It wasn't long before Albertan government with the federal government, didn't matter, conservative then into liberal, started selling off all the reserves that America and American investors developed for Canadians to make that industry. It wasn't Canada. I can tell you what the province of Alberta invested in. A South American company called Solvex, my first oil field job, where Albertans were fleeced, lost all taxpayer investment, went down the tubes into the garbage. Good thing we elected Ralph Klein, who brought all that American investment in, and over the next 10 years, Ralph Klein developed the oil sands, developed much more natural gas infrastructure through and to the United States for American oil reserves to keep 99 years of American military complex reserves, strategic reserves for America. Your Canadian provincial and federal politicians greasing, thieving, cheating, and raping you, and at the same time thieving, cheating, and raping the 50 states of the Union and all federal American tax-paying citizens who are subsidizing Canada, subsidized all of this out of their pockets without any reciprocity of taxes. They don't get a federal payout from Canada. And all Canada's treaty obligations not met, and in fact defunded to the lowest levels ever, meaning fuck you, America. And what did they do? They got into bed with China under Stephen Harper, picked up in 2015 and amplified by Justin Trudeau. And now, once again, the architect from Stephen Harper all through Justin Trudeau, Mark Carney, comes back to lead Canada to finish America off, to kill America by 2050. That's what's happening here, folks. I'm ashamed to be Canadian. I'm ashamed to have to tell you this. Yesterday I went through Quebec. That's already well on its way, folks, for PQ, which was the party in majority in power with 74 seats, neck and neck with the Liberals, but won that majority in the Quebec Parliament, which is a legislature, their province. They won, and they nearly won a referendum. Well, I'm telling you today, the Liberals are half as powerful in Quebec as they've ever been. And PQ took all the Conservatives, half of the Liberals, and is running a whopping majority under Plamondon. Whether people like him or not, that party's the party that ran the referendum they nearly won in 1995. Lost by literally 52,000 votes. Folks, by the numbers today, as a very good statistician, a guy who has a great grasp of mathematics, a skill set I have, When I look at the numbers today compared to 1995, I see a completely decimated, for the first time in Quebec history, not only a conservative devastated party, CAQ Smythe, I see a Liberal party, Smythe, never before in Quebec history. The separatist parties are standing alone, and PQ happens to be standing exactly where they were in 1995 while in power, and they're not in power yet. Their election comes this October, and on the build they're at, with all the crazy Liberals are doing, pissing Québécois off under Mark Carney, Québécois see it. Of all Canadians, they see it the most. And I'm looking at the numbers today, and on this trajectory, they're going to blow away a referendum. People don't see it, but I see it. I see it mathematically, brewing rapidly. And the more Mark Carney speaks, the more he talks about his Western Canada-China deal, his Ontario deal with China, and Quebec losing out on their pharma that they developed, to being sacrificed by Ontario and Western Canada, they're going to be gone. And if they stay intact, they're going to do much, much better in the United States of America, where I think they will go. Because like my latest tour of Quebec, where I brought more than 500 people into our party, 500 Quebecois joined us following that meeting I had and that tour I did. 500 joined us. And that's Party 51. Folks, Separation Quebec is really looking like on the table, contrary to whatever you're hearing. Way beyond Alberta, and it's effectual because you have the party coming into power in a massive, whopping majority. But this time, there's no Liberal Party of Canada with some kind of authority there. They're half the strength they were in 1995. And the more Mark Carney speaks, the more double dealing he does. The more he goes with China, and the more he favors Ontario, Alberta, and Western Canada, the more Quebec's going to be gone. And it really works out well for them to join the United States. And you know why? Because they're lower Canada. Where Quebec ends in civilized Quebec is where my province, Alberta, starts. The populous Quebec and the far reaches of its north are the border of the 49th parallel. I know, I drove it. 2 months tour, I drove all of that northern Quebec to see it for myself. Most treacherous, beautiful, like nothing else I've seen in Canada. Developed for RVing, snowmobiling, dirt biking, quadding. 161 kilometers of that fully developed like nothing else I've ever seen in Canada. And that's Quebec's far, far north. It's why it's called Lower Canada. Why? Because that portion of Quebec is well into the United States. It's south of some states of the Union. Lower Canada. And it will fit nicely into the United States, honestly. And that will greatly rupture and wreak havoc on Canada. That will divide Atlantic Canada from all Western Canada, including Ontario. There won't be any strong links left. Labrador sitting in stasis. It will wreck Canada. It will wreck Canada, and it will only promote more into the 51st state. That I see everybody going to whatever success Alberta has, which I think is maybe at 10%. Best case scenario from what I'm seeing in numbers from their signature drive and lineups so far, in the hundreds and maybe some thousands. It's not strong enough, and we're seeing it take almost all of January. If it goes and even into February, it takes all of February. We're down to for sure 15%. If it goes into March, that means we're lucky to see an electoral support for separation of Alberta at 10%. But mark my words, Quebec is poised to surpass that 50%. They're very close. A couple more nudges by Mark Carney in Western Canada, and I think Quebecois are going to be gone. and nobody sees it. Media's not reporting on it. It's shocking to say the least. As a mathematician, I see the numbers and I don't lie about it. I see Quebec massively, like never ever before in any scenario of independence getting there. And I'm desperate to wake Ontarians up in this video to the truth of your history and you who was the first to want 51st State of the Union, but America was not strong enough at that time to stand up to the United Kingdom. And yes, Canadians, you all owe all your lives in your Arctic climate to the United States of America. They've been carrying you all along. As the Christian story goes, if people don't know it, I'm going to tell you another story to kind of explain it. It's the story of the feet in the sand, and the person dies and is standing at the gates of heaven looking back on their life, and it's a sandy beach, and they see all of their lives. The good times, they see 2 feet in the sand, and then the bad times, the worst times of their life, it goes down to just 1 set of feet in the sand. And the person standing there, their soul at heaven going back on their life, and they turn and they look to God and they say, God, it really troubles me that at all my greatest times, you were there, you were walking with me in the sand. I can see both set of our footprints. You were there with me in all the great times. But when I prayed and I was down and I was at my worst, there's just the 1 set of footprints. You weren't there for me in my worst times. Why? Why did you do that to me? And God turns to the soul and says, my son, the footprints you see in the sand is me. I was carrying you. I was carrying you across the sand when you couldn't walk. I carried you. It's an epic, beautiful story of truth. And I'm sorry, Canadians, but in those times in your history, when you were at your worst, that single footprints where you think those are your footprints, that was Christian America who lifted you up. They carried you across those sands, that tundra, that Arctic. They carried you when all those you're sworn to who subjugate you left you to die. Left you to die. You live because of the United States, and they're feeling for you, knowing you didn't escape, knowing you didn't make it, even though you wanted to. And America tried. We have a false truth of history here in Canada, carefully crafted by our crown to keep us down. I urge every Ontario, at least in Eastern Canada, to read the story of Union Bridge, and how you needed to be the 51st state, and America couldn't do that because Britain would have killed them. And they couldn't do it, so they gave you preferential access. They subsidized you. And that's never ended all of these years. It's why everything runs north and south, because America gave that to us. They carried us when those who subjugate us threw us to the wolves. That's a true story. And that was a beautiful thing. Thank you, Thomas. And I ask you, Benjamin Ebley, please share this video on X and please tag Thomas in it. I get it. I do want to make that kite. I want to find a way to make that kite. It's a beautiful story. And moving the mountain of Ontario is priority. Quebec's already moving. I think Quebec's going to be leading this, Canadians. They're going to be leading this. And for all French Canadians who don't know, I've given 2 examples of 2 French states of the Union where all their signs are English and French. All their legislatures in the U.S. run in French. There's a Spanish version too for a Spanish state. I'd showcase just 2. There's more, but I show 2 epic ones who've always been there, and the federal government can't stop that. They don't ever talk about it. And federally they'll say da-da-da-da-da, but not at the state level. The sovereignty that so many Canadians want is absolutely found at the state level. The United States of the Union. That's where American sovereignty is found, in the state level. It's also the sovereignty for the American Indians, too, is at the state level. Equal nations within the nation of the states, and they get equal for those who constitute. Still work in progress. They got a long way to go, but they've continually, year after year, signed on more and more land releases. You see it every year if you look. America doesn't have big blowouts with their First Nations, not like Canada. The American Indian citizens are doing fairly well. Not all. There's all that need settlements, and those settlements are tied to Canada, believe it or not. And that's just truth. God's honest truth. That's what this video is. Everybody, share, get it out there. Tell as many as you can, especially Ontarians, because Canada's rupturing, and I believe by Christmas for sure, everyone will be shocked at how evil your media really is when Plamondon comes on with Quebec's separation in a real referendum hosted by Quebec radio and media, paid for by the majority government, professionally run, in the same intent and power and focus as the Allies of World War II did, even here in Canada, for the Sudanese communities in Ontario and Edmonton, Alberta, Toronto, Ontario, and Edmonton, Alberta. It blows me away that Canadians are left so in the dark, and your media refuses to provide all these truths for you, even in most recent history. So God bless everybody, and thank you, Thomas from X. I appreciate the kite. I'm going to make the string. I'm going to tie them back and forth. We're going to find that hook, line, and sinker. God bless everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. I love this Arctic vortex. The sunshine reminds me a lot of Alberta. One thing about deep cold is it settles all that moisture and you get that sunshine. So eat it up, folks, if you can. I mean, stay warm, but it's beautiful. God bless. Bye now.